We've got dominant pitching performances and big name players returning from injury. All that and more next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Hello and welcome to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. I'm Scott White hosting today, and I'm joined by Chris Towers. Let's start out with a couple of dominant pitching performances from pitchers who weren't must roster all that long ago. One of them is Christian Javier against the Angels on Friday. He struck out 14, allowed just one hit. And this was after striking out 13 and allowing no hits in his previous start. He also had 23 swinging strikes Friday. That's Christian Javier. Also Spencer Strider at the Reds. He allowed one hit over 6 innings, struck out 11, 24 whiffs on 93 pitches. Most impressively for him, his fastball peaked at 102.4 miles per hour. That's the fastest we've seen it for Strider. Chris, which of these two outings was the most impressive for you, Javier and Strider, and which pitcher would you want the most in fantasy?
I mean, you're underselling Strider. It wasn't just the fastest pitch we've seen from Spencer Strider. As far as I know, that 102.4 mile per hour fastball was the hardest pitch thrown by a starter in the StatCast or PitchFX era, so going back to like the mid-2000s. And I'm going to go ahead and say there weren't that many fastballs thrown harder before that. So that was pretty impressive. He is an incredibly impressive pitcher. 4 out of 5 starts. He's been very good lately. The only thing is, he hasn't gone super deep into games all that often. He had one start where he's gone over 100 pitches, but for the most part, he's been in the low 90s. So I think, there's a limited upside for Spencer Strider, at least in terms of how deep he's going to go into games. I think he's going to be awesome when he does pitch, though. So he's a, top 40 starter with more upside beyond that. And Javier's right there with him. I mean, the last 2 starts for Javier have been one of the best 2-start stretches I can remember. 27 strikeouts, 1 hit allowed. It's hard to be much better than that. I don't think he's, all of a sudden an ace, but I do think he's an absolute must-start pitcher at this point. The fastball, he's doing an incredible job locating it up in the zone. The slider's been very good for him as well. So I'm happy with both of these guys on my roster. I think they're both must-start players, but I think Javier was probably just a tad more impressive.
Yeah, and we also have confirmation with Jake Odorizzi coming back from injury that he'll be used as a 6th starter. So I don't know how much risk Javier was in of losing his spot after the way he's been lately, but that confirms it. Okay, we got a couple of bad pitching performances to highlight from the weekend too. Tarek Skubal allowed 5 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings against the Royals on Friday, 3 walks versus 1 strikeout. 5 bad starts in a row this makes for Skubal, a 9 ERA during that stretch. Walks have been bad. He's given up more home runs lately. You also have Mackenzie Gore, who allowed only 1 earned run in 5 2/3 innings at the Dodgers over the weekend, but 4 walks versus 3 strikeouts. That continues a bad trend for him. 15 walks versus 11 strikeouts in his last 4 starts, and the velocity has been down during that stretch as well. Which of these two, Chris, Skubal and Gore, is more concerning?
I would say Skubal, just because we had the stretch last season where he was just getting hit so hard. I mean, had arguably the worst quality of contact metrics of any pitcher in baseball, and he had turned that around to start this season. The control was really good. The results of quality and contact were actually pretty good for Tarek Skubal, which is a big turnaround. That's really gone away over the past 5 starts. The fastball is getting crushed. Expected WOBA since the start of June, over 400 with that fastball. And I think unless he's going to have really pinpoint control, it's going to be really hard for him with how hard he gets hit. So Skubal, I'm pretty concerned about. Gore, I just think he's still figuring out how to pitch, in the sense that he kind of only really has the fastball right now, the slider and curveball. He's still trying to figure out which one he can use consistently as a weapon. He doesn't get a lot of chases with those pitches. So I think he's just still trying to figure things out. But Gore's so talented that I don't want to give up on him. I don't want to give up on either of these guys, but neither is in my top 40 anymore.
Not quite point to the point of dropping them yet, but I think Gore's maybe a little more concerning because, when he had so many mechanical issues in the minors last year, we saw the velocity go down. We saw him lose control, and that seems to be what's happening here during this 4-start stretch as well. Okay, how about a hitter from the weekend? Isaac Paredes. We've been skeptical of him, but he hasn't cooled off yet. He homered in both games of a doubleheader Saturday, another 2-hit Sunday. Where do you stand on Isak Paredes?
Yeah, he's got a 209 BABIP so far this season, and the expected stats via StatCast actually say he's been lucky to have a 252 batting average. So that tells you about the quality of contact. He's someone who is basically just, I mean, even though he doesn't strike out very much, because he's hitting so many balls in the air to the pull side, he's basically home run or bust right now. And I think he can be a decent home run hitter moving forward, but I just think the rest of his game is limited enough that Paredes is just a middle or corner infielder for me.
Couple news items before we go here. Jacob deGrom began a rehab assignment. It was at Class A Sunday, but he looked awesome. Struck out 5 of the 6 batters he faced. 7 pitches clocked 100 miles per hour or better. So hopefully we're going to see deGrom back before too long. And Aroldis Chapman returned for the Yankees, but was used in the 7th inning of his first game back over the weekend and did not look good. Allowed 2 earned runs, issued 3 walks. Clay Holmes got the save in game 2 of that doubleheader. And it doesn't sound like Chapman's out of the closer role for good, but at least for right now, Holmes continues to handle the role for the Yankees. For more, check out the full-length Fantasy Baseball Today podcast, wherever podcasts are found.